The Chernobyl Disaster. The story of how a nuclear power plant meltdown changed the course of history during the Cold War and has had a lasting impact on the world to this day. In 1977, the Chernobyl power plant was built in a small town of Pripyat, Russia, in order to increase the Soviet Union's energy production and accelerate their nuclear missile program and capacity. However, in 1986, what seemed to be a major accomplishment of the Soviet Union backfired on them to such a degree that the Soviet Union's image of power and prestige would forever be changed. On April 26, 1986, at approximately 1:23 a.m., the Chernobyl power plant reactor number 4 exploded during a late-night safety test that went horribly wrong. The initial explosion killed nearly 40 workers in the power plant and exposed many others to extremely high levels of radiation that would lead to their eventual deaths in the coming months and years. The explosion released roughly 150 million radionuclides, which is the unit of measurement for radiation, into the atmosphere. This makes Chernobyl outrank both of the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined for the amount of total radiation released. The massive amount of radiation released caused mass hysteria and panic across the Soviet Union. Starting as early as the next morning on April 27th, evacuations began to occur of nearly 30,000 people from nearby towns. Over the coming days and weeks, nearly 400,000 people across nearly 2,000 square miles of Soviet Union land would be forced to relocate due to the serious health risks this immense amount of radiation in the air poses. It is a well-known fact that high levels of radiation damages cell structure, and hence causes various forms of cancer. Experts have estimated that roughly 600,000 people were exposed to high levels of radiation at Chernobyl. It is estimated that over the following 30 years, roughly 100,000 of these people died due to cancer complications. One of the main reasons why so many people were exposed is due to the Soviet Union's silencing of the incident, as they didn't want to damage the image and reputation of their communist regime. It took 2 days after the incident for the Soviet Union to admit what happened, and that is only because wind detectors in Sweden detected an abnormal amount of radionuclides in the atmosphere and demanded an answer from the Soviet Union. This allowed the radionuclides time to be carried by the wind to places as far west as France and Italy without people knowing that just by being outside, they were putting their lives in danger. The most common form of cancer caused by high levels of radiation is thyroid cancer, due to the thyroid gland's extreme sensitivity. Additionally, children and adolescents are at a greater risk to die due to the fact that their bodies aren't mature and strong enough to fight off high levels of radiation. Pair these together, and you get one of the most fascinating facts of Chernobyl's impact. Nearly 30,000 people under the age of 18 died of thyroid cancer due to Chernobyl's radiation, therefore significantly affecting a whole entire rising generation of Soviets. Chernobyl's reactor core burned and released radiation into the air for 10 days, until finally, on May 4th, 1986, a steel and concrete covering was put in place in order to contain the radiation and reactor. Due to poor design, Chernobyl's original cover was at risk of collapsing. So in 2016, a new dome-shaped cover was put in place that will last approximately 100 years. Chernobyl's core will need to be covered, and the area surrounding it will be uninhabitable for another 20,000 years, scientists estimate, due to the extreme longevity and half-lives of the radioactive material and elements found in the reactor's core. This has led to 1,600 square mile area surrounding the Chernobyl power plant, known as the exclusion zone. No humans are allowed to enter this zone due to the lingering radiation that remains, not just from the core, but from the buried radioactive debris in the areas surrounding Chernobyl as well. To many's surprise, the exclusion zone has actually flourished with life, even with the immense lingering radiation. Healthy green vegetation can be observed all over the area, and the exclusion zone is home to lots of animals such as elk and lynxes. In fact, the populations of these species have increased since the Chernobyl incident, and the flourishing of the wildlife there can mainly be attributed to the human absence. However, an interesting point of study for many scientists is the increase in albinism among species there, which experts suggest is due to radiation. Radiation levels at Chernobyl are still exceedingly high. If one were to enter the building of the reactor, they would die in mere minutes as the radiation is still very present. Even in areas surrounding the site in the exclusion zone are still very active with radiation, as scientists and those who study the area are only allowed to be in the zone for 2 weeks at a time, or else they would be exposed to too much radiation and risk health concerns, even with all their protective equipment on. Chernobyl's effect on the people of its time and the environment show the true impact and significance of this event. However, arguably its biggest impact is the one that it had on the Cold War and the Soviet Union itself. During a time of rising hostility and nuclear capacity between the two superpower nations in the Cold War, the Chernobyl disaster really put things in perspective for the world and helped bring an easing of rising global tensions. This is because it showed the world what the arms race and significant advances in science through nuclear weapons had the potential to do, as Chernobyl made a part of our Earth uninhabitable for thousands of years and brought about tens of thousands of deaths, which made each side wonder if this type of power should even be harnessed by the human race to begin with. This, in turn, helped bring to what some may call the end of a near 50-year conflict, or at least the easing of it, because each side was now able to recognize the true danger of what they were dealing with, and did not want another disaster of this sort due to the damaging effects it has on their respective countries' well-being and their citizens. Furthermore, this event greatly contributed to the eventual disbanding of the Soviet Union in 1991, as Chernobyl not only tarnished their image and led to bankruptcy, but it also showed the Soviet Union and their followers that they were far from perfect and in fact had many flaws to their regime. One of these main flaws is reflected in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant program itself, as the design of the RBMK reactor core, which was designed by the Soviet Union and their programs, was inherently flawed, and their emergency protocols and safety procedures were subpar, which is why what happened was nearly inevitable. It also showed the Soviet Union that maybe the United States was more superior than them, as the United States reactor core design and emergency protocols and safety procedures in their power plants were inherently simply better. This is shown through the partial meltdown of the 3 Mile Island nuclear generating station in the United States, which occurred 7 years prior to Chernobyl in 1979, and did not cause nearly the amount of damage and impact that Chernobyl did. This really speaks volumes, as it's not like the United States had Chernobyl's disaster to learn from, as it happened beforehand. Its designs and scientific programs were just simply more superior and safer. With the Chernobyl power plant being officially shut down in the year 2000, its events will be something that will be remembered forever and will constantly be a key point in discussion as humans keep advancing further with technology and continue to explore their place in our universe. In conclusion, Chernobyl has greatly shifted the path of human history in a beneficial way, from the example it set through its destruction of our environment and killing of many, to the easing of the Cold War and the nuclear weapons arm race.